what's going on here. And this past weekend, we had an opportunity to check out the Murph's Life Foundation farm and eco village and this new initiative he's calling the Bitcoin Mountain. And there's a chance for any forward thinking individual to come here to be a part of it, help build it out. And we're really excited about it. It's a really epic project. So today we're going to explore what this could mean and the example that Bitcoin initiatives such as this can set and inspire the world with. So we're going to talk about Murph's Life's accomplishments thus far and his mission and how Bitcoin Mansion got here today. First, let's run through some of his stats.
Bitcoin Mountain.
Did I say mansion?
Yeah.
So we do our retreats at the Bitcoin Mansion, and we're saying that a lot in our everyday meetings. And then Bitcoin Mountain is coming along, as you can see. I get these words mixed up a lot.
It's cool. It's interesting. You know, like people are planting their flag here, claiming their territory. There's like Bitcoin Mansion, Bitcoin Beach, Bitcoin Mountain. And so, yeah, everybody's, you know, it seems like the gold rush is in over here, like the wild, wild west, people coming with their flag and planting it. And yeah, just claiming their land or claiming their territory and you know, pushing the Bitcoin circular economy or, you know, expanding it that way.
Yeah, and we chose to call ourselves Sovereignty Studios in a different way. And I'm Jordan Herbs, by the way.
And I am Michael Ruiz.
All right, so let's first off run through. If you've never heard of Murph's Life, he's got 9 million followers across social media. He's built that following based off of giving people money and helping them build businesses all throughout Latin America. He's received over 100,000 individual donations from 15 countries and counting. He's had over $10 million donated to the cause, and he's lifted 1,000 families from poverty, more than 1,000. He keeps doing it. And we were up at the farm this last weekend, and he showed us exactly how he's helping them get out of poverty by essentially teaching them how to fish, as the old adage goes. Not just giving them money for the short term, but actually showing them and providing them the resources to build a business so they could provide for their families long term. And it's really, really cool.
You know, it's interesting because I had not heard of Murph's Life or Aaron before this. And so to learn all of this kind of as we go, like more and more got revealed to what Aaron has done, his accomplishments, kind of also his, you know, social media profile and his history. And I was like, wow, this is super interesting. It just got more and more interesting as we went along. And it's turning out to be like Aaron Murphy week over here at Socrates Studios.
We're in the rabbit hole. We're deep in the vortex.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so shout out to Aaron, dude. You're doing really cool stuff. We really respect and admire you. And that's why we're doing a show about you today.
Yeah. So then I guess so we spent you know, a couple days over there checking out his farm as well as the local areas around there, including the town of Wahuya, something along those lines. And it was really cool. I was glad to visit and explore a different part of El Salvador. It felt a lot more traditional and authentic.
Calm.
Yeah, as opposed to here, city life in San Salvador, or, you know, just the beach with, you know, all the tourists and stuff like that.
Well, it's called Surf City. And now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, it still has that city vibe down there in a way.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And so it was nice also that countryside is just amazing and beautiful and stunning. And so, you know, it's always nice to be up in a cooler climate, fresh air, surrounded by nature, and with amazing, stunning views. So it was really cool.
Yeah, and super inspiring. And so their mission is to help impoverished communities, support local artisans, teach self-sustainability, and overall just create opportunity. And he's been working in Ecuador and Colombia, I believe, here in El Salvador and other places. They're doing work everywhere, and he's still like traveling over Latin America to do these things. I don't even know how he does it, to be honest, but he's built a great system for what he's doing. So that's a bit about Aaron Murphy and Murph's Life Foundation. And so this latest, I would say, I'm going to, in my words, what he's doing now on Bitcoin Mountain is like the synthesis of all his work that they've been doing over the last few years and putting it in one place on the ground where these values, this ethos can really just be implemented into its own little economy, into its own community. So once again, super inspiring, and we're just going to commentate on that today. We're going to explore what it means, our perspective on it. And once again, this is an opportunity for anyone, including ourselves, to be a part of it. So in a way, we're kind of building in public here, hashing it out. This is something Sovereignty Studios might take a part of and be a part of Bitcoin Mountain and its development. And so,
well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
First of all, let's explain more exactly what Murph's doing, right? He's building out, it looks like a community center. He's going to have a farm where they grow organic produce. So the people at the restaurant, at the community center are going to basically be able to look out at the farm where their produce is grown. He's also creating a school, right, to teach the locals over there, the local population, not only self-sustainability, but also, I mean, basic arithmetic and reading skills as well.
And Bitcoin.
And also initiatives to include Bitcoin education in the mix. He's also creating a wellness center at his place, right? Sauna, steam room, cold plunge, all of these amenities to take care of yourself. So one of the things about this place that really stood out to me. So number one, it's like, I feel like it's a dream that so many people have, right? To build the ultimate like wellness compound, right? Especially if you're outside of the fiat system, where you build a community center or a village town center that, you know, revolves around uplifting the individual, right? Where things are designed in a way that makes sense for the betterment of humanity, right? As opposed to, you know, working against our nature and, you know, yes, more low time preference, short-term gratification with candies and stores that, you know, maybe are not as enriching or fulfilling in the way that what he's trying to build is.
Sure, totally. And not to mention this place, and to your point, it has stunning views. I don't know if we have a drone shot we could pull up, Matt, but stunning views. You know, you can see the ocean from here. You're above the clouds. You're in this forest. It's absolutely paradise. So you're not only there for the, I don't know, isolation, the health aspect of it, but you're just being able to relax. I mean, that's a part of the health aspect of it. But you're just in this beautiful place, gardens, beautiful trees, flowers.
Not only that, but I feel like, you know, it's also going to become a hub for innovation as well. Like, he's having a co-working spot there. And not only that, just being there, right? It's similar to the Campo Bayo property that I experienced when we were there. It just feels good. It stimulates the mind. It activates the creative channels within you. And I feel like a lot of that is going to happen there as well. Like, it's just going to be an inspiration to be there. And you're going to have all your amenities and facilities and community to, you know, help uplift you. You know, how cool is it working here at the headquarters, right? When, you know, you want to get your writing sharpened or want to bounce an idea off of someone, to have them here. We do it all the time, you know, these little collaboration sessions, and it makes us all better. So, you know, he's trying to build that in more of a public setting, which is cool. Like, it reminds me of the startup culture that I would imagine happened over there in California, you know, Silicon Valley and stuff like that, but just a Salvadoran version.
And what's cool about it is this is all a foundation, a charity, but everything that's built from it enriches the local community. So they grow all these flowers that can later be sold. They do all the composting, they do all the soil building, so that can not only be sold, but used all around to grow more food. And everything happening there is enriching the local communities, even to the tune of volunteers coming in and staying in an Airbnb they built on top of a local family's house.
Yeah. So that was the real cool aspect of this trip for me, was learning kind of Aaron's strategy or his thought process on giving. And he's really focused on trying to create entrepreneurs and businesses from his donation, as opposed to just giving people money, but actually helping them understand how to make money, how to run a business, and giving and empowering them, literally giving them back their financial sovereignty. That was really cool, because what Jordan was just talking about is, near his property is where all his workers live, and he's been building houses for them over there. And one of the ideas he has is to also create some type of rental unit attached to their property that they can then take pride in ownership of and run a business from, whether that's just tourism or whether that's, something else, but it gives them another avenue to flourish.
Well, it goes into low and high time preference, right? I would say there's a danger in charity work by just giving money or something like that. You become dependent in the short term, and in the long term, you kind of have nothing. So when you look at it this way with a lower time preference, hey, we're going to build businesses here. We're not just going to give you a stack of cash. We're going to give you what you need to thrive into the future so your children can thrive, so your children can learn what it takes to be an entrepreneur, so to speak, and pull yourself out of that generational poverty type of idea.
Yeah. And, that's one of the cool aspects about his charity. I mean, we can get into that now. Should we get into that now?
Yeah.
It's kind of a little bit of how I see his model and the overlap there with Bitcoin in a lot of cases. So you were just talking about low time preference. And I've been thinking about that lately. And I think that's ultimately, at the foundation of what needs to change in society. If we get people thinking more long term, planning more into the future, like I think as a byproduct, things are just going to get better, right? So any way we can inject low time preference thinking and behavior into the culture, we're all winning. Like society is going to benefit from that. And I see that people trying to do that with Bitcoin, right? When you learn how money works, there's a natural reorientation process that takes place. And over time, because of all these little micro decisions you make now, because you're aware of, how money works, you're always basically, especially with Bitcoin, right? Now you have this pristine form of capital. And so you're always weighing, whether to spend this money now or to save it and spend it later into the future. And so you're always making these little judgment calls throughout the day. And eventually your mindset just changes and reorients yourself towards more long-term thinking. And so, I think being Bitcoin advocates is a noble cause because, I think ultimately if we shift people's mindset towards a lower time preference, we're going to shift society to a better place. And I also saw that with Aaron Murphy and his initiative and his foundation and what he's doing over there at his farm is he's teaching people how to grow and food and become more empowered that way, more self-reliant, but also, there's a certain amount of patience that is required with growing food. There's a certain amount of cultivation and time that just needs to happen. And you see the fruit, literally the fruit from your labor, with hard work. And I think that also reorients people's minds. The closer they get to earth and growing food and seeing what the natural process is like, also it acts as a way to reorient their mindset from short-term, high time preference behavior and thinking to more of a long-term thinking,
Plus, watching that fruit grow on the tree is literally the proof of work. Because you have to plant the tree, you have to nurture it, you have to give it compost, fertilizer, you have to make sure it gets water. Like literally seeing the fruit grow is the proof of work.
Yeah. So that's another overlap. And also with his charity, it's also kind of proof of work embedded into that because, we were just, I think you might have mentioned something along these lines, but when you give to the Red Cross or you give to one of these big corporate charities, it's like you're donating to a black hole, and who knows? It's like a whole organ.
Yeah, bureaucratic, like hierarchy of people getting paid, staying in $1,000 hotel rooms.
Yeah, and so what I learned from watching what Aaron is doing or seeing what he's been able to build is that social media adds a certain level now of accountability, of proof of work. And so when you donate to Aaron, you see right away where that money is going towards, and you have a deeper connection with the giving.
It's a really cool like little feedback loop because you give and then he makes content of him giving it and that goes viral, which is how he gets more to keep giving it. And it just keeps going. It's a really cool cycle.
Yeah. And so it's a, it's also goes into don't trust, verify as well. Another principle that, is embedded into the Bitcoin ethos. And
think of all the auditing you'd have to do with the Red Cross to verify, and how much work that is in spreadsheets. And so with Murph's Life, just watch his content on TikTok.
And I think the next level here is, using the transparency of the blockchain or creating some type of system to see funds being transferred in real time and being able to, put a face to each transaction or like put a cause to each transaction. Now obviously this is cool for a charity, but not so much for someone's private life. But like there's reasons to have transparency, right? Another one is a government accountability. Imagine government spending being immediately auditable. So I don't necessarily think transparency is a bad thing. I think it could be a very useful tool in this new paradigm, as long as there's also privacy for the individual.
And while rewinding a little bit to that point about what's going on up there with the Bitcoin values coming into the real life, he's doing his retirement plans for his workers in Bitcoin, and they can't touch it for 5 years, which is a cycle. They say it's like whatever, put everything you got into Bitcoin, have patience for 4 years, and you're guaranteed to have a huge level up in your life. So these people are having a little extra being put into a Bitcoin wallet for them. They can't touch it for 5 years. And then, like, no matter what, they're going to have gains after the next cycle has happened.
Yeah. So that's another, like, paradigm shift, right? People are so used to having their retirement accounts, their 401ks, their IRAs being managed by some fund, by some broker. And now with Bitcoin, we have the ability to put retirement accounts in, our own hands, controlled by us. And I'm sure with programmable money, you can even kind of already do that I don't know, in the code, right? Basically, you could maybe put a lock on when this Bitcoin can be spent, right? And so there's all types of mechanisms that we can now start exploring if you're building out on Bitcoin, right? If you're building your infrastructure and ultimately that's the direction you're headed in, is in the Bitcoin standard, this is the time to try some real cool things. And it sounds like Aaron Murphy is not afraid to take that deep dive and see what he can do.
And it's the perfect place to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how the world changes, not just by adopting sound money, but with all the mindset, mentality shifts that come with it. That's how we bring our species. That's how our species can survive, essentially. Yeah. Otherwise, the Darwin Awards are going to come around.
Yeah, I think that there fundamentally has to be a new way of us organizing and structuring and cooperating with one another, right? Than what the fiat paradigm offers, right? Which is basically a lot of trust me with your money, or hey, let me interject myself in this transaction as a third party. All of that is kind of coming from the fiat world. And so now with this, more decentralized, self-empowered Bitcoin world, we can look at the old structures and then, revamp them and build them in a way that they just become more fortified and beneficial to the individual.
Could not have said that better myself.
Yeah. And so, the other aspect about what Murph is doing that I recognize is the peer-to-peer nature of it. It's not directly peer-to-peer. He's acting as a third party, as a facilitator. But like we said, when you combine that with the accountability, it's almost as peer-to-peer as you can get with a charity, except for giving directly to that person. And who knows, maybe eventually we get there. But like, as of right now, Aaron Murphy acting as a facilitator for the donations and helping people in the way he sees best fit is is as peer-to-peer as we're going to get, I think, with charity.
I like the simplicity of it all. Because we talk about the fiat financial system and you think of how complicated everything is. If you want to just maintain your wealth and you got to put it into all these, like you said, IRAs, 501ks, all this shit. And you just hope that it's going to go up. But then meanwhile, behind the scenes, they're printing money, inflation, all this other stuff that it's really, you have to dedicate your life to studying to really understand all this. With Bitcoin, it's simple, right? No more can be printed. More and more Bitcoin is going to be bought up by the world. It's going to keep going up. And yeah, in this case, yeah, it's simple. Here's your donation. Here's the little TikTok video that came with it. Here's what you enabled. Like, it's just simpler.
Yeah, and
less of a headache.
Going a little bit on a tangent here, think about how much capital is wasted, how much energy is wasted on dealing with all the inefficiencies from the fiat system.
Dude, remember a few years ago, there was that campaign, like Greenpeace or whatever was trying to say how much electricity and all this stuff about Bitcoin. And then the Bitcoin community came back with like, well, look about all the brick and mortar banks, the ATMs, 24 hours, like all this power. You think that doesn't outcompete Bitcoin for its power usage?
Yeah. No, it's and to recognize that all of this is kind of like, unnecessary now. Like, you're a lot of what the activity that you just mentioned is either escaping inflation, right, and trying to keep your head above the water because the money is corrupt, or interacting with some type of middleman because you have to park your money somewhere, and the stock market is the only logical choice. So you got to go through brokers and these people. So it's like literally like huge industries would be displaced if people just embraced the simplicity of Bitcoin and rerouted themselves away from the traditional financial system.
And that's why the more builders that come down here to help create that new paradigm, the sooner that's going to happen. Because we already see it. Like people living down here on a Bitcoin standard, how much easier it is. You don't have to deal with banks. You don't have to be on the phone and block your account. You can't make a transfer because of whatever little law. It's like banks are way more annoying in Latin America than in the United States, and they're still annoying in the United States, right? So the more people that are adopting Bitcoin and using it to simplify their lives, then the more that story can be shared, broadcasted, and inspire others elsewhere.
Yeah. And so when I look at what Murph is doing, and I overlay that against the Bitcoin ethos, another thing that stands out to me is that he's basically creating a citadel. And citadels, the idea of citadels, right? These fortified communities that are operating on a Bitcoin standard and embrace the Bitcoin ethos to its max. It's getting close to that because he wants to have the economy there powered by Bitcoin. He wants to have the retirement accounts. So Bitcoin is going to be integrated into a lot of things he's doing. And then we've already talked about it. Like the initiative itself, the project itself is so, is so overlapped with the Bitcoin ethos.
It's rooted in that.
Yeah. Just from a low time preference quality perspective. Right. So, and it's going to be a community center. It's going to be a community center, like a little village where people can come, congregate with their families, be involved with activities. And, over time, what I imagine, and this is kind of the vision he has, is this kind of town forming around it. And that's super interesting. And it's kind of the organic process of creating a Bitcoin Citadel. Instead of having it all centrally planned like Bitcoin City, it's kind of like, hey, I'm going to build this small little, staple right here. We're going to call it the Murph's Life Community Center, whatever name he has for it. And yeah, the town, the community, the city is going to form around that. And that's pretty cool. So it's kind of, in my eyes, almost like a proof of concept in real time for Bitcoin citadels.
I think in a future episode, that would be a cool topic to dive into is Bitcoin City and the pros and cons as far as low and high time preference when you're planning a city like that. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, because there are pros. Like, I'm not completely against centrally planned cities, right?
Right. No, there's a lot of perks to it. Yeah, but it's interesting when we talk about the Bitcoin values going into it and how, I have never thought about this until you brought it up, right? So it's not something for right now. You had something you wanted to say to the audience?
Yeah, I do. So we're over here in El Salvador and we talk a lot about El Salvador. So I would imagine you've been thinking about El Salvador. You've been,
If you're listening,
yeah, you've been wondering what's going on over there. Maybe you're looking at the rest of the world and you're watching it fall apart. And maybe you've thought, maybe I want to create a plan B or even a plan A, and wondering if El Salvador is the place to do it. Well, look, you're not alone. There's literally thousands of people thinking like this. And this is why we created our retreat. People are ready. They're ready to make a move. They just need a jump start. And this is what our retreat is about. We believe El Salvador is the birthplace of a new renaissance. We believe this is where freedom, entrepreneurship, and innovation can thrive. And we want people, specifically you, to experience that too. So like I said, we created the ultimate 4-day retreat to discover the magic and beauty of El Salvador. And we're doing that through community, through our listeners, through the people that follow us, through the people that come across us on the internet and vibe with us. And that's how we're ensuring that it's a like-minded group hanging out, exploring the possibilities of what is possible and what is to come. So, if you've been thinking about it, this is your opportunity. We would love to have you there. Check out buildinelsalvador.com for more information. And yeah, we'll see you there.
Yeah, it's really going to be a powerful experience, especially because we're doing this tour and workshop at Bitcoin Mountain now with Murph's Life. He's going to show us around. If you come on this retreat, you're going to have a chance to not only shake hands with the one and only Aaron Murphy, but actually see this being built out. Because, I mean, sure, people are building wallets and stuff on Bitcoin, but how often when Bitcoin Beach was going on, how many years ago was it? Like 4 or 5 years ago, when the first circular economy? Imagine if you got to be part of that. Imagine just to be there in the early stages.
I gave this speech to one of our guys over here at Socrates Studios who's wrestling with, whether to go take a corporate job, a cushy corporate job in the States, or kind of be here in El Salvador and grind it out in the wild, wild west, a new frontier. And, I basically referenced the Braveheart speech where he's there and they're facing the English, and it's like, this massive, well-equipped army, and it's just a bunch of villagers with sticks and some axes. And so people are getting disheartened, and William Wallace, which is Mel Gibson, comes out and he's like, if you had one chance, just one chance to kind of stand up for yourself and fight for your freedom, this is it. You should take it. And he's basically fighting them from choosing mediocrity. And so, yeah, over here in El Salvador, this is your opportunity to really be part of something big, to be part of a renaissance, to have your name, engraved in
a plaque.
Yeah, just engraved in the pages of history. Like, I really do believe that, amazing things are going to come from this movement that's happening here, and it's going to spark a transformation around the world. And so imagine being at the ground zero. And it's really cool. I mean, me being here right now, the interesting people we meet, it just feels like it's just excitement every day. It's adventure every day. It's cool things happening every day. And it's just a positive, energetic atmosphere to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're mentioning about William Wallace and the battle against mediocrity is another interesting point with Bitcoin, because it's how mediocrity is the norm, right? And it's not because people are mediocre. It's because we don't take the decisions. We don't make the decision to be excellent, right? Because we're scared, or we don't want to leave our comfort zone or something like that. But if you think about Bitcoin, once you take the orange pill, once you go all in, that's kind of like the ultimate I'm done being mediocre decision, because you believe in this. I'm putting it all in here because I believe in it. And what else do we have? Besides, that's our life force, right? We have our life, sure. Maybe depending on your circumstances, you don't want to give your life to something. I completely understand. I'm a father, right? But my life force, or the surplus of my life force that goes into savings, is Bitcoin. That is the ultimate decision to choose excellence, I think. Because it's I'm no
Yeah.
longer choosing to be mediocre with that energy, with that.
Exactly. Or you're also choosing no longer to be ignorant. You're taking some type of action. You're reorienting yourself to, adopt and choose Bitcoin as a standard.
And we're conditioned to remain comfortable in our ignorance as well. And then when we start to learn, well, oh, that's scary. The world really works that way. Nah, I'd rather just.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people stop, right? Like they get a glimpse of the Matrix, and they're like, "Oh shoot, I don't want to see any more of that. That's gonna mess up the way I function on a daily basis. Like I'm gonna have to rethink everything if I go down that rabbit hole." And they just stop.
Yeah.
But for those people that have gone down the rabbit hole and ready to make a change, like El Salvador offers a lot of opportunity.
And so that's what, going back into Murph's life, that opportunity in El Salvador is like these initiatives like Bitcoin Mountain. So we have this desire to connect more with our economy, right? We want to live in a more localized economy, a microeconomy, if you will. We want to know where our beef is from. We want to know who's producing our fruit and vegetables. We want to know that the doctor we visit has our best interests in mind, not big pharma, not something else. So it's like, maybe this is the way things used to be. I don't know, but people are craving that now. I mean, I think that's why we're here. And that's why we're drawn to projects like this, is because we all just want to start localizing more, decentralizing more, if you want to call it that. And it's such an important note, because at the end of the day, this thing I've been on lately is like, we're all just seeking community. At the end of the day, everything else is just a layer on top of this deep, innate drive to find community.
Yeah, I mean, we want to connect with people. We want to, on a deep level, spiritual level. I feel like that's a lot what's missing out of life.
Right.
And I've never felt more alive, especially when you're mission driven. You got a team of, like-minded people around you. Dude, this is awesome. Like the work that we're doing here, the collaboration that we're doing, the podcast, the projects that we're on, the people that we're meeting. I've never felt more alive and invigorated in my life.
Me neither. Hopefully we'll start making money from it one day.
Yeah. And I also feel very aligned, right? Yeah. And we, the process in becoming solvent, right? The path, the journey is also really fulfilling. And it's, I think, making all of us level up. We're all growing and trying to figure out not only how to create value, but also how to communicate that value and to connect to the people that need it the most, right?
Yeah, you got to go through the trenches no matter what you're trying to achieve. You can't just go from 0 to 100. You got to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. You have to get to 100.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I have a lot of faith that we'll figure it out. I've seen just a trajectory that we're all on. And I've seen the improvements we've all made within 3 months, and the clarity we've all gained, and the skills that we've all leveled up in. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, if we continue down this track, it's only a matter of time before things fall into place.
Yeah, but the real point you're making here, I was just kind of joking, but the real point is we all feel so alive. Whereas like we forget about that aspect, right? It's like everything we're doing, we're just so driven. It's like, cool. Like, what do I get to work on today?
I know, and I just like, I'm so disconnected from what's happening in the United States. Like, again, we talk about this a lot on the show, but I have to force myself to look at what's going on over there, from the elections to the hurricanes to like whatever. I'm just like,
world.
Yeah, I'm just like, dude, it's just blinders on because there's so much work to do here. And like, yeah, I mean, I pray and I hope everyone's okay because of the hurricane. And I hope nothing happens crazy with this election. But you know what? My time and energy is best focused on just putting my head down, grinding and building over here in El Salvador. And so I'm trying to do that without distractions. And so it's an amazing environment to do that in, because you're not engulfed by clown world, right? You don't have to see all the crazy stuff that you see in the United States. Like, I remember just driving to my gas station in Miami. I'm like scared for my life, dude. And so I've never felt like that here. Or, just seeing all types of weird stuff, from drag queens to all the other like aspects of clown world that seep into the real world. Like that stuff is for real. Like you see some crazy stuff, especially in a big city like Miami.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. And, it's funny. An old friend of mine that lives in Singapore reached out to me, and he was like, is it really that safe in El Salvador? Like what they're saying? He was so skeptical. He's like, I'm reading about, is it really that safe? I'm like, yeah, man. Like, it really is. Like, people have a hard time believing it. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's again, I have not felt in danger yet, and so knock on wood. But I'm sure there's always petty crime, petty theft, muggings, robberies, stuff like that in any society. But what's different here, dude? It's like they are really taking a hardline stance on crime. And so it's really in the back of people's mind, probably. Like when someone does something wrong here, like they get called out. Like when they arrest somebody because they murdered someone or there was something that happens, like Bukele brings out like the whole army, right? For two people that they arrested to make a public spectacle of it as a signal that, hey, we're not tolerating any of this stuff. So I think there's a lot to that too, right? Kind of lead with a big stick. Like you kind of have to show that you're not messing around, that we have a judicial system or, judicial system that is going to take a hardline stance on criminals.
Yeah, it's funny because like this I was looking up the statistic about El Salvador being the safest country in the Western Hemisphere, and I found some article on some whatever, and it was like El Salvador, which has quickly become a police state, has now ranked the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. Like, we gotta call it a police state?
Yeah,
I don't feel like I'm in a police state here at all.
It's very interesting to me. I don't know what to make of it yet. I mean, we're still technically under martial law over here, from what I hear. And you do see military presence, you do see police everywhere. But
they're there to get murderers.
Yeah.
Not there to check your papers while you're crossing the street, That's a police state.
Yeah, exactly. But the infrastructure is there. I'm not naive where it's like, oh, wow. Like at any time, if they receive the orders to become authoritarian, will they take it? Because they are, in a police state. I mean, there are in what I call it, martial law.
Yeah.
And so who knows? But look, there's a window of opportunity. There's a chance. I've done a lot of reasoning and rationalization. I've gone over the trade-offs. I've thought about worst case scenario, and this still is the most logical answer.
Yeah, that what if game that you go down to just weigh the pros and cons, like the what ifs. It's like there's just too much dissonance with, like, if we talk about the Bukele administration and what they're doing, it's too pro free market to suddenly enact a police state or something. It would be so 180 degrees that it just doesn't make sense. Now, that said, I wasn't around in Russia in 1917. I wasn't around during these other times where society flipped but I don't think it flipped suddenly in those cases. I think it was the course of, ideological subversion, like 20 years.
I mean, we all experienced COVID and how society flipped.
That's true. But the United States, Argentina, where I was during that time, was already a police state. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like here, I'm not scared of cops pulling me over to give me a ticket, right? Whether I'm speeding or not. It's like, I don't feel like they're there to just give me a hard time, which is what I feel like in the United States.
Yeah.
I don't feel like the police are there to protect me in the United States. I mean, I feel like they're there to hassle me. And I hope I'm wrong, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, you don't feel like police are the good guys over there in the United States.
Which is a shame because most of them are good guys and they want to just help. But then when our relationship with them is like, oh, you rolled through the stop sign or something. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, it seems like they're out to get you.
Yeah, for no reason. I'd rather the police be around to make sure there's no friggin' murderers by my kids.
Yeah. I forgot how we got into this.
Well, because we're talking about coming to El Salvador and like being a part of this new thing going on and being a part of this movement and why we chose it to be down here. The Bitcoin initiative's happening. I think like we've talked about it before, like it's almost a race against the clock. Like with the Bitcoin building and then the fiat building here.
Yeah.
Because all they're after here is growth. Growth is growth, as far as I've seen here. Mm-hmm. And now there's an option. The free market has created an option for there to be growth in this direction that we're talking about with Bitcoin and this other direction with more corporate shopping malls and more of all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a fiat paradigm against the Bitcoin paradigm.
Yeah, and there's an option. And this is once again, this is the William Wallace thing. It's like, if you believe in this, now is the time because everyone needs to be here to do it. Mm-hmm. We all have to throw our cards in and then maybe that's not the right analogy. Throw all our eggs in to the basket to come build this out.
Yeah. And so, a mantra that I often repeat to myself is all in, no fear. Because, like I mentioned, the what ifs and that whole game that you play, that's just going to translate into analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
And like I said, we have a window of opportunity. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to just take the comfortable route, or are we going to try to capitalize this and move humanity towards a better place? And El Salvador is giving us that opportunity, and I'm going to take it, whether for the better or for the worse. I've done my reasoning, I've done my rationalization, and I've still concluded this is the best place to be.
Yeah, what else are we going to do? And where else can you do this? This is like the third principle of that core sovereignty idea I was telling you about the other day. It's like, once you've got control of yourself, once you've learned how to influence your environment, then you got to go to the place where you can thrive.
Yeah.
Doing what you love, doing where you feel passionate. Maybe that's not El Salvador for everyone. But for us at this point in time, like, this is where we need to be. And look at the crew we're attracting. Look at the tribe we're building. Look at this community. I'm in the right place.
Yeah. And speaking of that, like, Sovereignty Studios continues to expand and grow. And that's freaking awesome. And it goes into what we're doing and our mission and our purpose and our vision. And so one of the things that we need to do is work more on that, define that more, detail that out more, because that is going to be the rallying cry that people can latch onto.
Yeah, we did that like 3 months ago, and now it's time to upgrade after everything we've learned and what's actually happening. We need to have that why meeting, and we need to really flush out like why we're here.
Yeah, the bigger picture, how we see us having an impact in this Renaissance more specifically. Like, if you look at our mission statement or what's on our website, it's like, to be a productive force in the Renaissance taking place here in El Salvador.
It's time to get more specific.
Yeah, like, how are we going to do that?
Because we didn't know then.
Yeah,
now we're seeing it more.
Yeah, and that's, and this is the other thing, for people thinking about El Salvador, you don't have to have it all figured out. I mean, part of why we're doing the retreat is so you can get a lot of it figured out really quickly in a short amount of time. But us moving down here, building a business, going on this journey, we had no idea that we'd end up here. Right?
We had nothing figured out when we moved here, except that we felt the potential and we knew we could get something done here.
Yeah. Yeah, and we felt the magic. That's what I'm saying. I was like, Jordan, all we need to do is get down there and show up at the table every day, and I promise you that we will find success.
And it's contagious because people are seeing it on Twitter, and more people are coming to visit.
Yeah, and so that's another thing about Murph's life that I want to touch up on. Man, I can't tell you how cool it is to see someone building out their vision and how excited that they can be and how optimistic and energetic. And, as a builder, as someone who wants to transcend the fiat paradigm and build a better world that's on a Bitcoin standard, like, being around people who are movers and shakers and optimists and doers and action takers is huge energy transfer. It's like, it's a huge positive influence. And so that's the people that we're trying to attract over here. Another person that's coming for a couple months, I think, maybe 3 months, is Eric V. Stacks. He came to our last retreat. He's going to be at this next retreat as well. And so, it's interesting. There's like a lot of high caliber people now starting to make their way or consider El Salvador.
Well, with plenty of reason. It makes sense.
Yeah. And then think about how empowered that community could be. If we're all building on Bitcoin, if we're all connected to an economy that's, transacted on through Bitcoin, if we're all have similar mindsets, visions, ideas, which we're pooling from, like, that community becomes really interesting and high powered.
And least of all, the broadcasting potential with all the followers. I mean, just that Murph's life has alone, but when we're talking about our community as well, like, just think of what's going to be shared with the world.
Yeah, I mean, one of the core tenets which Sovereignty Studios builds upon and keeps at the forefront of their conscious is leveraging the power and the connectivity of the internet. Like, we have tremendous leverage. This is something that Val talks about, like, all the leverage we have now with modern technology. Doing this podcast is one of them. Like, we're literally broadcasting a signal to the world. Someone in China, someone in Scandinavia, someone in Africa can be listening to this, right? It can resonate with what we're saying and can contribute now as well. Not only, through code, not only through doing tasks, but also economically through sending money through cyberspace. Like it's just a whole new world that's opened up. This is they talk about it in the Sovereign Individual, how technology, modern communication technology, is going to uplift the individual to heights we've never seen before. Right? He compared them to like the gods of Olympus or something like that.
Well, it's like going back to the network state analogy. It's like I was tripping out on it with Tommy last night because he's over on the table writing this thread, and I'm editing these videos over here on the couch. And I'm like, isn't that crazy, man? Like we met a year ago on Twitter. We had one phone call, and like now we're here working together. And then he's like, yeah, but now we're all here because of Twitter. And I realized like, oh yeah, that's how I met Michael. That's how Matthias found us. Like we're all just here because of the internet. When I really think about that for a second, it's pretty crazy.
It's awesome. Yeah. It's so cool. And, we just need to continue to do this, right? Like think about the organization we can put together. If everyone's on the same page with the mission, if everyone knows the direction we're headed in, and everyone knows their role, and they've been like literally chosen to fill that role, or they've carved out that role for themselves, right? Like they're like, okay, this is how I can make an impact, and I'm comfortable with this, and I'm around people that get it, that think like me, and that we're going the same direction.
Yeah, I honestly feel like that's a good place to close. Well, I feel the urge now. I hear that, and I'm like, man, we got so much to write, to build, to create, to be communicating this vision better, to getting more people, involved. And it's like every day there's so many day-to-day tasks we have to do, fires to put out, marketing for the retreat and stuff. But it's like, this feels like the most important, juicy stuff we need to do.
We got to figure out a product or service that's
automated,
not
scalable,
and that is consistent. If we can have consistent money coming in that takes care of all of our base needs, right, and frees us up to do creative projects, I think that would be the money spot.
Kickstart the creative project, because there's so many people out there that would want to be part of them. It's like, this is where the community comes in, right? Or imagining the community is where that income comes from, because it's like, then you're supporting the vision itself by being a member.
Yeah. This is where a token comes into play, right? Because you can literally like now organize and structure the incentive models around these different projects. Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like to do this, you need a developer. You're going to need someone who has some type of experience and who's thought about the microeconomics of communities and stuff like that. Like this is where, finding people with specific skill sets that could add value to the greater mission is going to play a huge role in us, making progress. But it's like fleshing out what that mission is at a level where people can resonate with it and latch onto it is the work that we need to do.
Yeah, we can't attract those people until we're communicating what we need to communicate to attract those people.
Yeah. So let's leave it at that. That's going into the discussion of a DAO, and so we'll leave it there. And maybe one day we'll revisit it here in the near future and see what other ideas we can come up with.
Yeah, so that's Bitcoin Mountain. Check out Murph's Life if you've never checked him out. It's a really inspiring project. Check out buildinelsalvador.com if you're interested in coming down to El Salvador to check it out and potentially be a part of something. Not just what we're doing, but Bitcoin Mountain. There's Bitcoin Beach down there. It's a whole Bitcoin country to play with. And Adopting Bitcoin 2024 is coming up November 15th. And you can get a 10% discount on your privileged access pass using discount code SOV Studios. This is the ultimate high signal conference for builders, people that are here to do stuff with Bitcoin. So it's not a pop culture event. It is a builder, a developer, a CEO, a marketing, a networking event. This is where people are here to get stuff done, to build the Bitcoin standard, essentially, that we can all move into.